Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, just imagine this for a second. You spend more than a decade of your life writing what you believe are groundbreaking books. You finally get them published, they're sold all over the world, but you don't see a single dollar in royalties. Not one. Well, that's the story at the heart of a formal complaint we're breaking down today. It's a professor's fight against a massive publishing giant, and it's full of allegations of financial exploitation and, really, systemic injustice. Right from the get-go, the complaint opens with these really powerful words from the professor himself, Mohammed Fayyad. He's making it crystal clear that this isn't just some small squabble over money. To him, this is a deeply personal and professional battle where his entire life's work is on the line. All right, so let's get a clear picture of who we're talking about here. On one side, you have the complainant, Professor Dr. Mohammed Fayyad, and on the other side, the accused is Auerbach Publications, which is part of the huge academic publishing house Taylor and Francis. So a classic David versus Goliath setup. To really get our heads around this, we're going to treat it like we're opening an investigative case file. We'll start with the complaint itself, then dig into the core allegations, look at why the work is so important, explore the legal hurdles that came up, and finally get to the demands for justice. Okay, first up, the complaint itself. This isn't just an angry letter. It's a formal document that was sent to the Attorney General of California, and it's packed with some very serious allegations of systematic injustice, financial exploitation, and even discrimination. So, Professor Fayyad filed this formal complaint to, in his words, expose the predatory cruelty that he believes exists inside the scientific publishing industry. He's not just venting here. He is officially asking for a real investigation and for things to be made right. Now, let's get into the specifics, the core allegations. And you gotta understand, this isn't something that just happened overnight. The complaint lays out a whole series of financial and professional problems that the author claims have been piling up for more than a decade. The timeline here is pretty staggering when you look at it. The professor alleges that the publisher stopped paying him royalties way back in 2014. For the next 10 years, nothing. He claims he received absolutely zero income, even while his books were out there being sold. It wasn't until late 2024, he says, that a couple of invoices for just one of his books finally showed up. And that seems to be what prompted him to file this formal complaint. Let that sink in for a moment. We are talking about more than 10 years, an entire decade, where, according to the complaint, an author's work is making money for a publisher, but none of that money is finding its way back to the person who actually created it. And to break that decade down a bit, the complaint gets really specific. For just one single book, he claims there have been over 19 missed payment cycles. The contract apparently states that he's supposed to get paid every 6 months, so you can see how those missed payments just stack up over time. And this number, well, this says it all. This is the heart of the financial claim, zero. According to this document, that's the total income the professor says he got from his books for over 10 years, even as they were being sold on huge platforms like Amazon. So it all really boils down to two huge allegations. First, the obvious one. He's being deprived of his royalties. But the second one goes much deeper. He calls it calculated negligence. He's talking about ignored emails, sure, but also about being blocked from accessing his own manuscripts and a really serious accusation of systemic discrimination. Now, to really get why this is such a big deal to him, you have to understand the work itself. Professor Fayyad argues this isn't just about any old books. He believes this is scientifically foundational work, which, just raises the stakes incredibly high. In the letter, he draws this really sharp contrast. On one hand, you have your typical tech books that, let's be honest, are often outdated in a couple of years. But on the other hand, he presents his work on what he calls stable patterns. These are core, reusable solutions in software engineering, as fundamental knowledge that's designed to stay relevant for decades. And the complaint definitely doesn't pull any punches. It calls the work a revolution. The professor's point is that by messing with these books, the publisher is essentially stealing the collective hard work of all the students and researchers who helped develop these ideas over so many years. So you're probably asking yourself the same thing I was. If this has been going on for so long, why hasn't it been sorted out in court? Well, the letter gets into that, and the author points his finger at what he sees as a major systemic problem. And that's the exact question he raises. He says he's tried to get legal help for years, but he keeps running into the same brick wall over and over again. And the answer he claims he got from more than 50 different lawyers was always the same. the statute of limitations. That's the law that basically puts a time limit on how long you have to start legal proceedings after something happens. But the professor argues this isn't just some neutral legal rule. He claims it's become, in his words, a breeding ground for corporate misconduct. He's saying that publishers can just ignore authors, wait for that legal clock to run out, and then, poof, they're basically off the hook. So finally, after laying out all the history, the grievances, and the legal roadblocks, the complaint shifts gears. It stops just describing the problems and starts demanding specific, formal solutions from the Attorney General. And the demands are super clear. First, he wants full financial restitution, all the royalties he says he's owed since 2014, plus interest. Second, an independent audit to look into the work's impact and those discrimination claims. Third, he wants a wider investigation into the publishing industry's practices as a whole. And finally, he wants them to enforce his contract and give him access to his own original manuscripts. By filing this formal complaint, the professor has basically dragged a private dispute out into the public spotlight, shining it right on the publishing industry. And it leaves us with a really critical question, not just for academics, but for any creative field. What happens to justice and accountability when the power is so lopsided? And how much does the game change when these kinds of fights can't be kept behind closed doors anymore?